Hey friends, how you guys doing tonight? I am back for day 6 of the 12 days of financial self-care. Thank you guys so much for being so understanding of yesterday's push. Yesterday my daughter was performing in a show and it wasn't on my calendar for some reason, but she is the priority. And so I pushed today's recording to make sure I could show up for her because, ironically, the day before we talked about values. And so, how would I look like talking to y'all about values and then I'll honor them myself? So, I took the day off to be at all of her performances yesterday. But today we are talking about financial forgiveness. So, hello in Facebook world, hello in TikTok world, hello in IG world, hello in YouTube world, hello in LinkedIn world, hello from all the places who is joining me today. I am going to get started. If you guys would do me a favor and double tap the screen just to let us know that you are with us and to bring in some other people who want to be a part of this conversation. Go ahead and do that for me because I want to make sure the people who want to hear about this are getting notified. Do me a favor, hit the share button. Hey, how you doing? How you doing? Who's watching me today? So I can never tell if you're watching me from YouTube, Facebook, IG, or TikTok. So say hello in the comments so I can say hi back. Say hello in the comments for me so I can say hi back to you. Doo-doo-doo. Hello. Oh, the topic for today, I feel like I need to put it on the board. I wanted to be able to put a backdrop in here, but for some reason, hey, thanks for joining. Thanks for the hearts. Appreciate it. We're talking about financial forgiveness today, and I want y'all to engage in this conversation because I think a lot of y'all need to have some space to forgive yourself for some of the choices you made in your past financially. How many of y'all would like to tell your younger self something that you had to learn the hard way? How many of you guys, thank you so much for the hearts. How many of you guys have something you wish you could tell your younger self that you had to learn the hard way? Who needs to tell their younger self something about money? And I'm gonna flip this around on because I feel like it is already mirrored on Facebook, but not on TikTok. So I'm gonna make sure I got this one. Look how my two F's are completely different. I don't understand my logic, but I do that a lot with a few letters. Guys, this is a space for you guys to exercise forgiveness. Here's what I know is that when you don't forgive, you can't move on. And I'm not talking about forgiving other people. I'm talking about forgiving yourself. When you don't forgive anybody, including yourself, you cannot move on. You cannot make progress. Not forgiving yourself for mistakes of your financial past is what's holding you back right now. Not forgiving yourself for mistakes in your past is what's holding you back right now. I'm going to say it again. Not forgiving yourself for financial mistakes in your past is what's holding you back right now. And here's how I know. When you don't forgive yourself for mistakes in your past, you don't trust yourself to make good decisions in your future. You second guess yourself. You delay action. You defer action to someone else because you don't feel confident, because you're looking at the things, the choices you made in your past, and you're saying, I don't really know if I can trust myself. So you give it away to somebody else or you don't do anything at all. So I want to spend this time with y'all asking you guys, thank you for joining, thank you for the hearts, to forgive yourself. If you would like to come up to the panel, I want you guys to join this conversation. How is past money shame affecting your decisions today? What money decisions would you undo if you could go back in time? I know the mistakes I would go back in time to do. I know for certain allowing somebody to co-sign on a debt, sharing finances with my partner, with my ex-boyfriend, before he was financially capable of that responsibility, which would have been never. He would have never been financially capable. But certainly cohabitating, not advocating for myself sooner. There are lots of mistakes that I know that I would go back and I would undo if I could go back in time. And I'm curious about, what are some of yours? What are some of the financial mistakes you made in your youth? Some of the mistakes you made today. I wish that I had called and inquired about resources and not suffered in silence. I wish I had talked to my friends and my family about my capacity and not suffered in silence. I wish I had shared when an excursion was too much for me and not put myself in financial bondage to try to show up for friends. I wish I had trusted my friends enough to understand my financial priorities at that time, and to be able to tell them what I could and couldn't do. There are so many mistakes I made in the past with money, that if I could turn back the clock, I would do them differently. And I want to know about yours. What are some mistakes? Because these lessons that we learn, if we don't acknowledge them, we certainly can't pass these lessons on to our children. You said, I wish I learned more about my own money mindset before starting a business. Oh, that's such a good point. I was talking to someone the other day, and I fully believe that entrepreneurship, if you need to do personal work, like personal development, when you become an entrepreneur, you're going to be forced into observing everything about yourself. All your insecurities, all your financial habits, all your fears. There are so many things about yourself, your mindset, where you stand financially, your risk tolerance, the relationships you have, how you feel about your skill set. There's so many things that come into place when you become an entrepreneur. You are going to be forced to get to know yourself a whole lot better. And it's a little traumatizing. I'm not going to lie. It's a little traumatizing to do that work, which I think all of therapy, like in the beginning of therapy, it gets worse before it gets better because you're digging into places that you're not comfortable with, but it does get better. So I'm so glad that you shared that. Was that Janae? Did you share that? That was Janae, right? Yeah. Janae from Chicago. Hey, Janae from Chicago. Very traumatizing. Yes. You understand. Being an entrepreneur is not for the weak, but I promise it's work you needed to do. And I think the reason is because when you work for somebody else, you're inside of their framework, right? If things don't go right, it's nothing you did. Like, you following, this is the procedures y'all have in place. If things don't go well, it's on them. But inside of your own business, when things don't go well, it's on you. And you make a lot of things that are not going right mean something personal about you. That's not true. You may not be great at marketing, and you'll make that mean that you're not good at the actual skill or trade you're in, and they have nothing to do with each other. And it takes time to undo those mindsets in order for you to be able to still push through and figure out what support you need in place, to have the humility to ask for support in the areas that you're not great in, and not personalize it. And all of that affects your money. All of that affects your money. But here's the beauty of it, is if you've ever really done the work on yourself to be an entrepreneur, you could go into any corporate setting and you will be the most amazing, because you've done all that inner work. So now you're like inside of someone else's business as an entrepreneur. You understand exactly what you bring to the marketplace, and you don't see yourself as an employee. but you see somebody yourself as somebody who is bringing, like, it's mutually beneficial. I'm bringing something to the table and you're bringing something to the table. Like, you get me in this. I could never go back into the corporate space with the same mindset I had when I was just like before I went into full-time entrepreneurship. But I have to forgive myself for all the ways I betrayed myself when I didn't know better. And some of the not knowing better, this is important, y'all. Some of the not knowing better is not technical. Like, we think that we just need more money or we need a specific budget. If I just download the right app, or I get the right, if I get a raise, or I get the right, whatever, right tool, if I learn more about this, investments, or learn more about that, suddenly I am going to make all good decisions with money. Here is where life humbled me the most, is I went through a really deep depression twice in my life. And I also went through a really traumatic event at some point. And all three of those are very, like, pivotal markers in my life, that had nothing to do with money, but they affected my finances a lot. It really almost devastated me financially. And what I discovered, and I didn't really have the clarity until the third, more recent incident, was that the connection between mental health and money. And this is why I talk about mental health as it relates to your money, because I knew all this stuff to do with money. I've worked in finance for over 20 years. So it wasn't like a lack of knowledge. It wasn't lack of will and desire, because I always made good choices with money for the most part. I didn't understand that when I would have these depression moments, or when I was going through trauma, I was shut down. And that shut down, and me not willing to talk about it, and me not going to therapy, because only recently now do we start talking about therapy as a normal thing. Before, it was kind of taboo. Like, you went to therapy, something's wrong with you, right? If I tell you I have ADHD, it's stigmatized, and it's like you're saying that you have a disability, and it is, but you're saying that something is wrong with the way you learn, or your intelligence, or whatever it is. So there's a lot of stigmas in especially the Black community, with being aware of how you're feeling mentally and emotionally. And women, I think in particular, are always battling things like, oh, you're an unstable creature. Like, I hate when guys say that. Like, because we are emotional beings, and we all are emotional beings, but because we deny ourselves our humanity so often, especially as moms, because we have to take care of our kids, we have to take care of our partners, we have to take care of everybody, our boss, our coworkers, our friends, you know what I mean? Like, we tend to be caretakers. We tend to neglect ourselves a lot. And I was that. I was the friend, the strong friend that somebody should have checked on. And I was able to power through a lot for a really long time until I couldn't. And when I couldn't, I didn't reach out for help, because I felt like everyone expects me to be better. Everyone expects me to be something. Everyone needs me, and if they realize that I'm having a bad day, they won't come to me with their problems, and I still want to be able to support them, right? So I had to pretend that I wasn't crying right before I got a phone call, or pretend that I wasn't struggling with something, so I could still be the strong friend they needed. That habit of feeling like I had to be all things for all people, and never give myself the permission to accept help in return, caused a lot of hardship on me mentally and emotionally. And eventually, that level of overgiving, time wise, energy wise, financial wise, caused me to shut down in a way that took me a long time to recover from. And it cost me a lot financially, because that shutdown made me not check my mail, not check my email, not answer phone calls, not pay bills. This is not somebody who's not capable of doing all these things. This is not somebody who didn't know the consequences of these things. But when you are at that level of depression, you cannot function. You can't function. And when you are making those mistakes and you're realizing, man, I'm making a situation about maybe something that happened in life. I remember one scenario was I was really having a hard time dealing with the death of my cousin, and I went through a really bad depression. So imagine that has nothing to do with my finances, but that particular scenario shut me down in such a way that it created a financial obstacle. So now I'm compounding the shame of or the weight of dealing with trauma, grief, depression, with now shame of making a financial mistake I know better than. And then when you're feeling shame about it, you don't talk to people about it. And you just let the situation get worse and worse and worse. There's a cycle that is attached to shame. And so I want to ask you guys, how many of you guys are still letting past money shame affect your decisions today? Because I really, really want y'all to be aware of it so we can start to move back. I want you guys to be vulnerable with me today. I'm sharing y'all all my business so that y'all feel comfortable sharing yours. You said, hi, I just got here and it sounds like you're describing my life. Oh, well, I'm glad that you can connect to what I'm saying. That's why I'm here. I think it's my calling to be transparent. I believe that God never wastes my pain. So anytime I actually remember going through that the last season of depression. And I remember crying, like talking to my therapist, talking to my sister, and saying to her, I'm not even asking God to take this away from me. I remember saying, like, I'm not even asking him to take this away from me because I have a feeling he's allowing me to experience this so I can help someone else. That I had been so far removed from financial hardship emotionally and mentally that I needed a refresher so I could understand from like a cellular level what someone feels like when they make a phone call to me, when someone reaches out to me, how hard it was, how humbling it was, how much they had to overcome physically, emotionally to make that call, to comment on a post, to anything. I needed to remember in a really deep way what they're battling so that I could really help them in a way that a textbook was never going to give me that education on. So I said, God, I don't need you to take this away from me because I think the point of this is for me to write this down, for me to journal, to experience all of the emotions I'm feeling, to write down everything I did to get out of this scenario so that I could help somebody else. But I asked God for endurance because I was at a point where I felt like I want to get through this. I know I have a calling to do this work. I know I need to be here as a mom for my child, but I don't know if I want to be alive. I don't know. It's not even want to be alive. I didn't know if I had enough in me to stay alive. I wanted to be alive. I felt like I don't know if I have enough fight left. I don't know if I have enough in me. So I prayed to God for endurance because I knew that he wasn't going to waste my pain. I knew that one day somebody would hear this story, would see me on here, and they needed to hear me today. That somebody was going to be at the end of their rope and they didn't have enough endurance. And hearing me be vulnerable, hearing someone who knew all the things to do with money and still found herself in this situation would make them feel like, well, if she can get here, maybe I can give myself some grace. Maybe I can stop being so hard on myself. Maybe I can stop feeling like I should have known better because quite frankly, none of y'all should have known better because ask yourself, was it in your curriculum? Did they talk about finance in elementary, middle, and high school, college? Hell, I worked in higher education for 13 years. I know for a fact that those degree plans didn't require personal finance to graduate. It was an elective. You could choose to, but it wasn't required. So you didn't have an education on finance. You didn't have an education on emotional intelligence, middle school, elementary school, high school, college. You're not taught how to process your emotions. You're not taught the correlation between your mental health, the way your brain works, and your emotions. You're not taught that when you're dealing with crisis and trauma, when you're in fight or flight mode, your prefrontal cortex shuts down, and that's the critical thinking part of your brain, the part of your brain you need to make good financial decisions. You're not taught that. You discover that after you've made years of mistakes. And so you get to a season in your life in your late 30s and your 40s and you're clear now, but you have years of debt, years of damage to your credit, for the time in your life where you were just kind of like going through the dark, figuring it out. You have years of hearing your inner self like say, don't make this choice, and you ignoring your inner voice because you wanted to trust other people or because you didn't trust yourself. Is this hitting with you guys? Is this just me? Does this sound familiar to any of y'all? You say, yep, you can't function and shame creates a larger hurdle. You're speaking to my heart. Yes, shame puts you in a self-sabotage cycle because shame will keep you from calling a coach. I very often I get a message in my DM. Usually when somebody first DMs me about, working with me as coaching, they'll usually tell me, I've been wanting to reach out to you for a long time. I've been watching your page for like a year, or I have been, and they'll be honest at that point and say, but I was kind of ashamed, or I was afraid, or whatever. And usually when they reach out to me, it's when they get to a point where they're just sick and tired, when something is so bad that, like, listen, I don't, like, it is what it is. Like, they're either in crisis mode, whether it's mentally, emotionally, or actually financially, but usually that's the push. When the pain of staying the same hurts way more than the pain they're thinking is going to happen if they reach out. And I want so badly for us to do more preventative care. Like, you know how you guys go to the doctor and the dentist just for maintenance? Like, you go to the dentist and get cleanings all the time, right? And we go to the doctor for our annual well visit to make sure we're still well. But we don't do that in two very specific areas. We don't do that with our mental health, and we don't do that with our money. We tend to wait until something is terrible, when the relationship is going to hell in a handbasket, when you're in such a deep depression, if you have ADHD, when everything's in chaos and you can't quite figure out why, right? With your finances, when things are just this close to breaking, right? That's when you reach out for help. And it makes things worse. Imagine your finances and your brain like a car. And the only time you took your car to be serviced was when the engine blew. Like, if you weren't getting oil changes regularly, your car would die a lot sooner. Like, like that vehicle would not have a very long life. Right? If you weren't getting oil changes and all your fluids changed and all the stuff that's supposed to happen to cars done regularly. But if you go and get those things done regularly, it's annoying to have to stop and do the maintenance, right? I know I personally don't like going to get my oil change, right? It's annoying, but it's way cheaper than the cost of repairing something that you let get that far damaged. Because if you don't get oil changes done, then you got to replace the engine, and that costs more. It costs more time, it costs way more money, and your vehicle's value decreases significantly. And it would have cost you a whole lot less mentally, emotionally, and financially if you just did maintenance. The same is with your finances. The same is with your mental health. The same is with your body. You got to do maintenance, which means even if you don't think anything is wrong, you should check in. You should have an outside perspective help you recalibrate. Let me read some of these comments. Shame makes me self-sabotage for sure, and also just stops me from looking at my finances. Yes. The paralysis people have with looking at their numbers. I had a client who reached out to me for coaching, was really kind of like, I really know I need to do this. I really want to do this. We scheduled a coaching session. She paid for her coaching, and we got to the coaching day, and she was like, I need to reschedule. And I knew, right? Because this happens to me quite often. I knew what had happened was, when I work with my clients, I give you a homework assignment. You got to go through your numbers and you got to fill out a spreadsheet ahead of time so I can look over it. And what I suspected was that looking at her numbers were overwhelming. And mentally, it was like, I don't need that negativity. I'm seeing it was going to be too painful. So she avoided the task into the last minute. And then the shame of not doing her homework made her feel like, well, let me reschedule. And I anticipate that. So for me, ideally you do it ahead of time, but if you don't, we'll do it together. So I called her up and I said, can I ask you a question? Your spreadsheet, did you not get a chance to get it done? And she was like, no. And I was like, did it make you anxious? And she was like you could see like the blind, like the fact that I knew. And she was like, yeah. And I was like, I know. I was like, here's the thing. This is why you have a coach, because it's scary to just look at it. But I promise you, that's the hardest part, is looking at the numbers. Once you know what you're working with, it's up from here. because it's just information at this point. But it is scary. I'm not going to lie to you. To look at those numbers, it's not going to necessarily feel good to see if you're in the hole. But now you know information that will help you take the next step. So I was like, okay, let's do this. Let's do it together. Let's go through the numbers together. We looked through the numbers together, and she was in the red. But here's the beauty of having the courage to do this regardless of how you felt, to get out of that paralysis that sets in when you have shame or when you have fear around seeing what that number is. We looked into numbers and she was in the red, and she suspected she was in the red, but she told me that she had been working like 20 hours overtime every week because she anticipated being in red, but she wasn't sure how much. Thank you so much for the gift. She anticipated, she knew she was in a red, but she didn't know exactly how much. So she was just burning herself out with overtime. And before we started coaching, I had talked to her about like what were some of her goals, what were some of the things that, you know, her financial hardship was costing her. And she was saying she felt like she really wasn't getting to spend any time with her daughter. All she does is work. She's not getting to spend any time with her daughter. So we looked at the numbers that she was in the red, and we determined that she actually only needs to work like 7 hours of overtime. So here's the thing, you're in the red and you see that number, it still doesn't feel good because you're in the red. But what we were able to do was determine like you're in the red, but not as much as you think. So you still have to do overtime, but you were working 20 hours of overtime, which means that we can give you 13 hours a week back to you, to your child, if you want to. And how freeing and liberating it was to find out the number is not where I want it to be. And I still need to do work on that. But I don't have to be running myself into the ground as hard as I have been. So what she ended up doing was she ended up working like, I think like 10 hours a week of overtime. So she was doing an extra 3 hours so she could use that to start building her month ahead fund and start saving to hire a career coach who could help her get into a better position. But this is the power of like getting past those anxious and shameful feelings that keep us from taking action. You said I've been through so much trauma that I had shut down completely. Guys, I'm telling you, please do the work of unpacking and going to therapy to do all this work. Because I promise you, there are things that are in your life that have nothing to do with your finances that are affecting your finances. And you know, we don't realize it. I'm going to give you a perfect example of this. As a business owner, one of the things that I absolutely have to do is public speaking. I need to be doing presentations and workshops and things like these lives, but I have a lot of anxiety. Like it takes a lot of courage every time I have to get on here to do this. And my sibling, my sister said to me one day, like, where does that come from? Because, you know, you always were talking growing up. And I was like, I had to sit and think about it. Like, you know, I know that there were jobs that I remember my boss wanting to promote me to another role and me not wanting to apply because I knew at that level I was going to have to do like corporate trainings. And I preferred to do the one-on-ones. Like I like training one-on-one. I'm a really good communicator in that way. But like big settings, I thought I was going to have paralysis and shut down. So I was like, nah, I'm good with this job right here, which meant what? I was turning down money. Now, the part of myself that I needed to work on was that the reason that was coming up for me was because as a child, I heard a lot of talks too much in class or Betty be quiet. I'm one of 5 kids, right? So you fighting to be heard. So you're being told to be quiet a lot. And I think growing up, it made me have this inner voice of nobody wants to hear you. What you have to say isn't important. So even though when I would do workshops and presentations, I would get feedback. Man, that was so good. I love the way that you explain things. I would hear that and I couldn't receive it because my inner voice was still hearing the voices of my teachers in school who would say, be quiet. And so I am still doing work on myself to trust that what I have to say is important so that I can get out here and do this work because there's only so many hours in a day. I can only coach one-on-one so many people. So I know for me to impact my community the way I want to, I got to be on stages with a lot of people who can hear me, but I have to overcome that fear. Well, I got to do that inner work. because here's what it's also affecting. It affected me wanting to apply for the job. It affected my pay immediately because I wasn't taking opportunities. As a financial coach, if I'm not going out and doing large speaking engagements, it's affecting my pay in my business, how much income my business can earn. If I don't do that inner work to relearn that what I have to say is not only important, valuable, that it wants to be heard, that it helps people, it's not only affecting my finances, but it's affecting y'all. So I got to do that work. So I don't know what part of your life you have to do work on yourself, but I promise you, whatever it is, it's probably indirectly affecting your finances. Okay. Let me read some more comments in here. You said I suffered so bad from financial mistakes and fear. I went back to a job. Hold on. I suffered so bad from financial mistakes and fear. I went back to a job. The recovery feels so slow. Did you go back to the job to try to make up for the mistakes? Like you're trying to catch back up? You said it's overwhelming now. I make money, but I don't see it. And I started your tasks, but stopped. Okay, but look, you're back here again. You're back. So you started and you stopped, but here you are on my live again. Okay, can you give yourself a round of applause? Because you could have just checked out. You could have fallen into the shame and embarrassment and said, oh, she's going to ask me if I did my homework and my answer is going to be no. And I don't want to deal with the shame of not following through again. And so I'm just going to avoid her altogether because it happens. Okay, you're back. Congratulations. You know how long it took me to finish my degree because I kept starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping and starting and stopping. For whatever reason. I had a lot of valid reasons, but you know how long it took me? I kept getting my ass back up and trying again. Okay. I kept getting up and figuring it out. Right. Life was lifing and right. I didn't know the answers. I didn't know anybody who knew the answers. Technology isn't what it was now. Right. There were so many reasons. Right. I was in an abusive relationship. I was homeless with a newborn. You know, that was many years ago. My daughter's 16 now. Like, you know what I mean? I was essayed and really dealt with trauma from that. Like there were these pivotal moments in my life that caused me to shut down. And I knew that they were justifiable reasons, but the narrative in my brain, the way I wouldn't forgive myself was like, look at you, quitting again. Look at you, just a failure. Look at you, you never finish stuff you start. That's the way I talk to myself. Let me read some more of these comments. You said it's overwhelming now. I make money, but I don't see it. I started to okay, I read that one. If I'm in paralysis deep, it's giving me so much anxiety and depression. Okay, so first of all, B, I want you to take a breath. Right now, if you're feeling a paralysis, anybody on this live, if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are feeling anxious, I want you to pause right now. We'll all do this together. And I want you to take a deep breath. Just take a breath. We're not going to skip this part. We're not going to skip this part. Here's why. There's two parts of our nervous system. We have our sympathetic nervous system and our parasympathetic nervous system. Okay. Your sympathetic nervous system is an important part of your nervous system because it helps you protect you from danger. It's our fight, flight, freeze response, right? It activates your stress response, right? And so your body, when it activates that sympathetic nervous system to protect you from danger, it says, let's reserve our energy to be able to stay alive. So it shuts down parts of our body and it restricts blood flow from part of our body in order for us to be able to survive a lion attack, right? And keep in mind, your brain doesn't really understand the difference between a financial danger and a lion. It thinks like your life is in danger, shut down, right? And we have to actually tell our minds, like, first of all, you're safe. And so one of the things that I like to do, and actually before I even get into what I like to do, I want to fully explain the sympathetic nervous system. So when that part of your brain shuts down, one of the parts that shuts down is our prefrontal cortex. That's the part of our brain responsible for critical thinking. If you have ADHD, we already struggle with this part anyway, right? It shuts down this part of our brain because it's like, all I need you to do is get away from the lion. Run, jump, freeze, hide, stay still, whatever. We don't need you to doing complex math problems. We don't need you to be making complicated decisions. We need you to get away from danger. So this part of our brain shuts down. But we got to make financial decisions. We got to respond to inquiries, people asking us to do things, right? We need to do things, but this part is shut down. So you can't make good decisions when you're in that heightened state of emotion. So what you have to do before you're making big decisions is you have to find a way to calm your nervous system down. So this is important. One of the things I do with my clients before every coaching calls, we do a wellness check, ask them how, on a scale of 1 to 5, how they're feeling mentally, emotionally, physically, and financially. It's just to create some self-awareness so we know, do we need to do some calming before we get started. So the second part of our nervous system is called our parasympathetic nervous system. This is the part of our nervous system that's responsible for calming us down, right? It's our relaxation response, okay? The way you understand the difference is, think about a parachute, right? Parasympathetic nervous system. A parachute, when it opens up, what does it do? If you were free falling out of a plane, flying fast, right? Falling hard. That's what life is doing. Life is life, and you're falling out that plane fast as hell, right? And it's got you feeling anxious and you're nervous and you're screaming and you can't think clearly. You know what I mean? Like it's shutting you down, right? That parachute opens up, it slows you down. Now imagine, I don't know if you guys have ever seen like those race cars that have like a parachute that come out the back of them to slow them down. If you were about to crash into something and it slowed you down, like sometimes when you're driving and you ever like turn into another lane or seeing somebody turn into another lane and they make a bad situation worse because they didn't have enough time and to look to see that there was another bigger car in the next lane, and now they done hopped over the lanes too fast and now they've gotten hit by like a 16-wheeler, right? Having a parachute allows you to slow down long enough to look around to see all your options and see, is this the best decision I should make? Right? It allows you time to think, to respond critically. But when you're falling, when you're desperate, when your brakes are out, you're like, you're erratic, right? That's what happens when we don't calm ourselves down before we make decisions. And then we're not proud of the decisions we made. And again, we're in a cycle of shame. So you need to calm your nervous system down. So what I like to call this is pulling your parachute. There are activities in actually, I feel like I put this in most of my tools. So the Financially Unfuckwittable Budgeting Workbook, there is an activity early on. Here we go. This, and feel free, I don't know if you can see it or not, I don't know if you can take a screenshot and actually see anything meaningful. But this activity right here, it gives you a bunch of free, they're Googleable, right? Free ways that you can calm your parasympathetic nervous system. What works for you today may not work for you tomorrow, right? So sometimes going for a run or a walk helps calm me, especially when I'm angry. Sometimes deep breathing helps. Sometimes a good cry is what I need, believe it or not, a good cry. Sometimes I need to listen to the words. Sometimes I need to listen to music. Sometimes aromatherapy will be helpful. Coloring, painting. This is why I came out with the Financial Self-Care Coloring Book, because sometimes when my thoughts are racing and I'm trying to figure out how to be present, coloring allows me to just focus on what I'm doing right now. So I want you guys to get in the habit of, if you have to make a major financial decision, ask yourself, how am I feeling right now, first of all? And if you are not feeling great mentally, emotionally, physically, if you're anxious about this financial decision, I want you to just pause for just a couple of minutes to try to pull your parachute and calm yourself down. Takes a few deep breaths, talk to somebody, journal, color, go sit in the sun. I'm serious. These seem like small things that are not significant, but I promise you it matters, because you need to activate your calming nervous system so that your critical thinking part of your brain can turn back on. You're not going to make good decisions when you're anxious. Okay. So that deep paralysis that you're experiencing, make sure that self-care is a non-negotiable part of your day, in the morning, in the evening. Right now, the actions that you need to be making towards your finances are probably not going to be something technically financial. Right now, you just need to get into the best place you can, or a better place mentally and emotionally, so that you can then take the next step towards financial. For me, that looked like activating God. Like, at first, I didn't have a support system. I didn't know who I could talk to, or I hadn't had the courage, because I wasn't used to sharing what I was going through, because everyone's so used to me being the strong one. Okay. And so I first started with God. Like, okay, God, I'm your kid. You said, you know what I mean? You said I could talk to you. Like, I need you to help me get out of the bed today. And God told me, if you'll at least do 1%, sometimes your 1% is 100%. I'll make up the difference. Just give me what you got. So some days 20% was 100%. Some days I had 120% to give, and other days I didn't. But if I just did what I could do, and that might look like just logging into my bank account, or it might look like just going outside for a walk. It might look like just going downstairs to do the dishes. Small tasks to get myself up and going. It might look like journaling, whatever it was, something to move forward. Whatever I had to give, I didn't put too much pressure on myself, because again, I was dealing with a paralyzing level of depression. Okay. So for you, I want you to be kind to yourself, and I want you to just give yourself small steps to just be okay. To just be okay. And then I want you to stop expecting you to do this by yourself. When you get to a certain level of like you need somebody to help pull you out, this is where your therapist can be helpful. This is where a financial coach can be helpful. This is where your budget bestie can be helpful, a trusted friend with this particular issue. You need to start building your support system. Inside of, sorry, one of the very first activities that you do in the budgeting workbook, and this is why I told you I built this based off of my own pain and my own experience. I was like, well, how did I get out of this? In this section here, where you're building your financial power team, there's the first section is like financial professionals that you should probably know, right? And you're listing them, because when you're in crisis, you don't want to be trying to figure out who to call. Like, that's not the, like, you don't want to be going through a phone book. Like, you want to know who your people are before you need them. Like, when you're grieving, that's not the time to find an insurance agent. Or an estate planner or whatever. But below the financial people, there are 3 people that I said that you should have. You should have a therapist, right? That are not necessarily financial, but they're related to your financial health. You need to have your therapist, a budget bestie. Thank you, VR in progress. And you need to have a community connected to whatever you're dealing with. So you might be in a financial community, right? But for example, I have ADHD. It's helpful for me to be in an ADHD community, because they understand the unique set of obstacles that I'm dealing with every day, and they make me feel more sane and safe. Because when I talk to neurotypical people about some of the issues we deal with, it's lost on them. So it's helpful for me to be around people who understand my problem and are working towards the same goal. So if you're a single mom, if you're in the military, if you're whatever your unique obstacle it is, build a community around that so that you feel supported, because that is going to give you the courage and the strength to face some of the financial things you're dealing with. So start building your support system right now. Let me read some more of these comments. I have to do it for my business, and I've been procrastinating years of doing public speaking. Do it, friend. Do it. Do it scared like me. Here I am on this live. As the oldest girl of 5, your story. Oh, my thing threw your comment way up there. Hold on, I'm gonna go back and find it. As the oldest girl of 5, your story resonates. Telling you, growing up in these big families, all your life you gotta fight to be heard. I'm slow and steady for sure. I feel great. I believe a lot of money is coming my way. I let go of the anxiety. First of all, can we just talk about that as an affirmation statement? I believe a lot of money is coming my way. Y'all, put that in the comments for yourself. I believe a lot of money is coming my way. I'm gonna put that myself. I believe, I'm gonna put it on the Facebook side though. A lot of money is coming my way. And I do. I believe that. You said will lose their subscription. I think that is not you saying it. I think that's TikTok telling me that. Let me see. Thank you so much for all the hearts, VR. I appreciate you. Thanks for joining today. Hey, Becca. Thank you for liking the live. I see y'all in the comments. I believe a lot of money is coming my way. That's right. Put it in the comments so we know it's real. Speak that over your life. Okay. So guys, I need you to I want you guys to share with me. I wish that my Facebook community could see the show art that you guys see as far as like what the past money mistakes. So I'll just tell y'all what it says over here. The first question I wanted to ask you is, who is the main person still holding your past money mistakes against you? Like sometimes it's not self-inflicted, but other people are keeping us from forgiving ourselves because they keep bringing it up. But sometimes it's us. Sometimes our friends and family are like, God, I forgot about it. Or I never thought that you were at fault. Or I never thought that you should know better, or whatever it is. So A was society and my bills are still holding this against me. My billers. B is friends, family, or a partner, maybe, or spouse, boyfriend, cohabitator, whatever. Are they the ones that are holding your past money mistakes against you? Or C, me. I'm the one struggling to forgive my own damn self. And I'm gonna go ahead and do it. D, maybe some combination. You guys can do like A and B, B and C, A and C, D, all of the above. Who is struggling to forgive your past money mistakes? Is it more you or is it more somebody else? C, D, C. I strongly suspected it would be more us. These answers are not surprising me. Who is it, y'all? Look over here on Facebook and see. I see TikTok. You said me. That's another C. Me. Can I ask you guys a question? This is a question I want you to ask yourself because I suspect that you probably have never really asked your own self this, is why? Why are you not forgiving yourself? What's the reason? Is it because you're afraid that if you forgive yourself, you won't have the mistake? Like sometimes we feel like our mistakes keep us from making the mistake again. So it's like, if I just keep dangling this in front of my face, sometimes we feel like we can't forgive ourselves because we haven't recovered from it. Like we're still in the middle of the damage. And so we feel like we can't forgive ourselves until we're all the way out of it. You said because I know better and don't do better. You know better, but don't do better. Okay. You might know better technically, right? For example, I knew to log in and pay my bills when I was going through depression. But you know what I didn't know? How depression affects you, how it shuts you down. I didn't know that. So did you really know better? I knew not to impulsively shop, but I didn't know that ADHD made me more prone to impulsivity. So if I was putting myself in spaces where all the things that I'm drawn to are right, I was creating a temptation that is a lot harder for me to overcome than someone else. I didn't know that. So like when you say I knew better, you knew what? Because I think that's when we're being hard on ourselves, right? You knew what? because I haven't dug out of the hole I've put myself in. If you were quite literally in the hole, would you being at the bottom of the hole, beating yourself up, get you out of that hole? I mean, literally. If you were in a physical hole, would you beating yourself up about how you got there get you out of that hole? No, exactly. So we're not gonna do that. You said I knew not to spend more than I make, yet I continue to spend. Yes, you did. But do you know what pain you were trying to solve when you were buying on those days? You know, when we talked about spending with our values and being more mindful, and I talked about like all of us are emotional spenders, it's because every action we take, whether it is to get out of bed, to go to work, um to dodge a ball, right? Every emotion, every action we take in life is to either feel something or avoid feeling something. We are all emotional spenders, right? And when we want something, there is some perceived void here. There's some perceived need. And we often don't sit in with ourselves long enough to understand what is it we really want. That's why I had you guys do that exercise on the last live about going deeper, deeper, deeper into those whys. Because usually your first answer about like why you want something is like surface. It's like, oh, I want this because oh, I told you the example I gave with my client where she wanted, I asked her why she wanted to go on this vacation because she was really disappointed and expense popped up and it wiped away some of her travel money that she was going to have to like go to all the amusement parks with the kids and her husband. And I was like, well, why did you want to go on this vacation in the first place? Like, what was the reason why you wanted to go? And she was like, oh, because I just needed to physically get out of the state to get away. And I was like, why is that? And she was like, because if I do something here, odds are I'm going to get pulled back in. I'm going to end up working. Like if I'm too close to home, I'm going to end up working. I was like, okay. And so why was it important for you to get away? What did you need? What were you trying to do? And she was like, I just wanted to do some stuff. I figured like go on vacation with the kids or whatever and my husband. And I was like, and why was that important to you? Like, what did you want? What were you hoping to get out of it? And she was like, I wanted a bond. Like, I feel like we never have time to bond. And I was like, okay, here we go. Now we're working with something. So you wanted to bond. That was the core goal. You wanted to bond. Do you feel like if you went on this trip and you didn't get to go to Disneyland and you didn't go to, that there are things that y'all could do together that would still make you feel bonded, like that would make you feel closer to the other person? Do you think that you could figure out what makes your grandkids feel close to you? What makes your husband feel close? Do you feel like you could communicate what makes you feel closer that your husband could do? Like, do you feel like you could communicate those things and find something that cost you little or nothing? And she was like, whoa, yeah. So, okay, so if you go on this trip and you don't get to go to the parks, right? I still want you to do what you can and try to raise the money to be able to do some activities too. But if you go and you can't do the parks, can you still get what you wanted out of this? At the bonding. And she's like, yes. Okay. So now we don't need to beat ourselves up about a life emergency popping up and us not being able to spend the money here. And also, you don't need to spend your money on things that don't fulfill the purpose, because until she got to the core of we wanted to bond, she might have made the mistake of paying for all these parks and still never coming home feeling fulfilled and not quite being sure about why don't I feel fulfilled? We did all these activities because they went to the park and never actually bonded, because being in the same place doesn't bond you. Like, that's like living with a spouse y'all never talk to, like y'all roommates, y'all not bonding. Like, bonding requires more than proximity. So if she didn't hear herself say what I want most is to bond, she would have went and spent all of this money throwing it at a vacation, believing that the activity would be enough to fulfill the need. Her need was to bond. So what I'm telling you is, when you're thinking about why I'm buying stuff, why I'm spending more than what I have, I want you to pause to understand, what is the need that I'm trying to fulfill? Is it boredom? Is it I'm afraid I'll forget that this deal exists. Like as an ADHDer, I know that I'm afraid that I'll forget, just forget. And that's enough sometimes for me to make me want to be like, let me just buy it now because I may forget, right? And to overcome that, I started putting stuff in my cart. To overcome it, I started writing things down because the fear of forgetfulness is so great for me that it made me want to buy. I didn't understand this need to feel like I was in control of my memory, right? So what is the need that you're trying to fulfill? Because that'll help you understand why you're violating a goal you have and overspending. If the need is, I want to feel confident, for example, so I'm going to buy this outfit because I want to feel confident, but you never get to the point of I want to feel confident. You're like, I want to buy this outfit because it's cute. It's cute and it's on sale. You get closer to figuring out what I want to feel is more confident. For me, like as a speaker, that might be a reason. Like I know I'm insecure with public speaking, and so this will make me feel better and I'll show up. But if I get to the root of like the at the end of the day is the I feel insecure. I don't feel confident. So once I can get to the root of that, it's like, okay, well, maybe just practicing with somebody. Maybe if there's somebody who's willing to go back and forth with me so I can get the jitters out. Maybe if I watch and listen to somebody else present, I'll realize it's not as big as I imagine in my head, right? And that will make me feel more confident. And now I'm not buying stuff to cure confidence, but I won't be able to tap into any of those resources if I'm not willing to figure out what is the core need. What am I trying to feel or avoid feeling? Okay, let me read some more of these comments. And if you guys, I want you guys to be able to engage in this. So if you guys want to come up to the panel, you can. I want this to be more conversational because I really want y'all to have the space to forgive yourself and talk through what you're going through. You said if I leave it in my cart for a while, I could then go back and decide if it's what I need or want. Exactly. And most of the time you discover like, I don't even know why I put this in here. I don't need this, want this, have a desire for this. I don't know what hobby. As an ADHD here, boy, we love a hobby, okay? We're going to find some new creative hobby that we swear we're going to do, and then it'll wear off. And I saw in my cart, like I have like, I don't know if y'all saw this lie of this post I did a while back where I added up, you know how like you have stuff in your Amazon cart and then you could do like save for later. I got a bunch of stuff like I added up my save for later. It's like years of save for later that I just never got rid of. I added it up. It was like over $3,000 worth of stuff. And some of the stuff in there was like a foam cutter. I don't know what craft project I thought I was going to do 2 years ago that required me to invest in a foam cutter. But yeah, it was in my cart and in my save for later. The beauty about something like that, though, is I saw how much money I didn't spend by using this habit of putting stuff in my cart and then putting it in my save for later and seeing if I still want it. Somebody say if I leave it in my cart for a while. Okay, I read that one. All right. If you guys would like to come up to talk through some of what you're dealing with, just let me know in the comments and I'll pull you up. Shame will affect your decisions today. For sure, because if you feel like ashamed and you get to a point where you're so ashamed that you don't trust yourself, you'll stay in unhealthy situations because you're afraid you'll make a mistake again. You're like, you know what? I'll just defer to somebody else. I'll defer to this person to take care of it because I don't trust myself. Or I'll stay at this job because I'm afraid that I'll mess something up. Or I'm not going to pursue coaching. Like some people will want to do financial coaching with me, but will talk themselves out of it because they have stopped everything they ever started. Like they don't finish things. And so they're afraid this is going to be something else that they don't complete, right? They don't trust themselves. And the shame of how often they have tried to do something on their own and not been successful keeps them from reaching out because then someone else will watch them. It's like, it's one thing to not finish something and only you know about it. It's something else for someone else to do it. And so as a result, they're not getting the help they want with their finances. I got another question for y'all. What money decisions would you undo if you could go back in time? What specific money decisions would you undo if you could go back in time? And some of the financial decisions that you would undo, they don't have to be bad ones. It's like I would have just better ones. Like if I could undo a financial decision, I would have not bought. If I had bought this house, I would have bought. There was two houses. I would have bought them both at the same time, and I could have at the time, but I didn't know anything about passive income through rental. Right at the time, there was this beautiful condo that was set right on the water. I'm talking about prime real estate, y'all. Prime real estate. It was an estate sale, and this lady, the family was trying to sell this condo, 2-bedroom condo, for $60,000. And when I tell you, it sat on the water, like corner unit, bedroom, nothing but the Chesapeake Bay, other like water from, like, you couldn't have gotten a better spot. But I didn't want to live on that side of the water because I had just accepted a job on the other side of the water. And so I was like, oh, I'll buy this one. But had I known what I known, I would have bought them both and rented it out. In my imagination, I had to live there. It never occurred to me that I could buy this one, live here, rent that one out. And I live in Virginia Beach, so there's something in the Waterfest. Like, I would have made good money in the summertime renting that out on Airbnb. I didn't know. I didn't know. Okay. It would have made my life a lot easier to have that passive income. In fact, when I had my depression, my meltdown, it would have been incredibly helpful because it would have replaced my income from my 9-to-5 job. But I didn't know. So am I going to beat myself up over that forever? Am I going to beat myself up at all? How am I going to be mad at myself for something I didn't know? That nobody told me about, that I didn't have an education about, right? If I had known what I know now, I might have bought a multifamily property so I could be living rent free and letting the other tenants pay for the mortgage on the property, right? But I didn't know. You see how that works? So some of y'all are beating yourself up about stuff that you had incomplete knowledge about. Like, you're like, I should have known better on this element, but you're making that one thing be the whole picture, and it's not the whole picture. Some of y'all were dealing with grief and you did not know how to deal with that part. You didn't know, how to have difficult conversations in that. You didn't know, you know what I mean? You didn't know. Some of y'all were trying to do your best. Like, there are some people who, like, I've been telling my daughter since she was like a little girl. I'm talking about little. Listen, set me ablaze. When I pass away, don't you waste no money on an expensive funeral on me. You can rent a casket if you want to, but get that casket back, right? I've been saying this for the longest, right? Because I know that when people are grieving, funeral home companies, that, especially if they know you have insurance, baby, they're going to have you like, don't you want to honor your loved one with the most extravagant, most expensive version of something? Absolutely not, right? But when you're in that state of grief and you're trying to do your best to honor your loved one, you're like, okay, right? In hindsight, you might not have done that. Hold on, TikTok wants me to prove I'm a human to keep going. Okay. In hindsight, you might have chosen to do something completely different with that, with the insurance proceeds. But you didn't know at the time. You didn't know how to handle it. You didn't have any context. You may have been an only child with no support, or you may have had the opinions of 15 other people and you're so young and you should listen to the grown-up who's telling you to do XYZ. You don't know. You don't know. And here you are, years later, still making decisions based off the insecure, shamed person of your past. Instead of acknowledging that you could have been anywhere else right now. You could have been on toxic TikTok live, but you chose to sit in this room because you do care about your finances. You do care to try to do something differently. You care enough to be here. You could be anywhere. Could have swiped a long time ago, but here you are. So what money decisions would you undo if you could go back in time? Do you need to undo them? Or can you just learn from them? Can you stop wishing that you could do something different and just use it? For me, all the things I didn't do the right way became a blueprint for how I teach. I teach what I wish I had known. So if I had made those mistakes, I might not be doing the work I'm doing right now. I didn't want somebody to suffer and make the mistakes that I made. So should I be wishing I did something differently? Not if it pulls me away from my purpose. No. I needed those mistakes. So I'm not going to worry about the past. What I can control is my present, and how I handle the present will help me manifest a better future. You can't control the future. Notice I didn't say that. Like, right? You can't control the future, but you can do things today that can contribute to a better future. You can be present. Thank you so much for the hearts. Thank you so much for double tapping. I appreciate that. And thank you for sharing the live as well. I see y'all sharing. I don't know why the font on here is so small. Like, doesn't this app know that I can't see? Doesn't it see me struggling even though I'm wearing glasses? Sorry, y'all. If I miss any of your comments, please charge it to my eyeballs and not my heart, because I want to make sure that I'm responding. Is anybody else dealing with anything financially that they want to be vulnerable with, that they want to talk through? And I know it's not easy to share. I know it's not easy. I know that the idea of people being in your business is scary, people judging you, especially on social media, because everybody got something to say. Everybody got something to say. But stop being afraid, because 70 some odd percent of people are living paycheck to paycheck. So whatever you feel like you're dealing with that you should have known better, most of the world, they're dealing with the same things, whether they make six figures or not, because they're still dealing with unprocessed trauma. They're still dealing with grief. They're still dealing with unhealthy communication in their romantic relationships. They're still dealing with microaggressions in the workplace, right? They're still dealing with poor education system. Like we're still dealing with the stigma of pursuing mental health care. We're all still dealing with all these little elements. And we're still being told that I'm gonna have to do a whole soapbox conversation. I worked in higher education for 13 years. So I got a love-hate relationship with how so many Black women are in all of this student loan debt, because we were told that if we get a college education, that our life would miraculously we'd be in a good position financially. And it gave us a lot of information out of context. And so, yeah, that's a soapbox conversation for another day. But society has told us there's only one way to learn, one way to earn, and one way to live. And so we are chasing that myth of an American dream. Thank you so much. You're welcome, sweetheart. We're chasing that myth of an American dream. And now we are here trying to figure out, how can we get out of this? Like, you're not even the person who made the mistakes anymore. You've long graduated from it, but you've been busting your butt trying to shift out of it. And it's If you're watching social media, it feels like everyone's doing great. Everyone's not doing great. And this is why I told you that recently, during the pandemic, I went through that Great Depression that could have wiped out everything. Because I need you to understand, we are all capable of being in an uncomfortable financial situation, especially if we are not taking care of ourselves. Every last one of us. I don't care what you know about money. If you're not taking care of your mental health, your emotional health, you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable. Those degrees didn't keep me, those years in working in finance didn't keep me from shutting down, because I didn't have the tools. I didn't know how to regulate my emotions. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have people I was sharing it with. I didn't even have people who noticed something. I was so good at being strong that people didn't even notice when I was having a bad day. They would never notice that something was wrong. I remember my best friend saying to me one day, I just I just I just thought you were okay. You always seem like you're okay. And as much as I felt like, I remember it, like in some seasons of my life, like feeling like, how come nobody noticed? But that was partially my responsibility, because how come I wasn't giving it to someone else? Why wasn't I allowing someone else that level of intimacy to know what I look like when I'm not okay? Like to not make them have to work so hard to notice that I'm not okay, instead of just saying, hey, I'm not okay. So me and my big sister, we went through this period, this transition period, at the same time of leaving our corporate work and prioritizing our mental health and our physical health. um, and it had been a journey, but we had committed to, no matter what, checking in with each other at least once a week, not taking I'm okay and just letting us like check out. Like if we start to notice somebody checking out, I don't care. My sister, no, I don't care if she get mad at me. No, pick up the phone. We're not going to allow each other to check out, right? Like we have to have at least one phone conversation every week. We have to be able to check in with each other, to hear each other's voice. We have to be willing. So if I know that I'm facing something really hard, it may not end up being hard for me, but I'll shoot her a message and go, hey, this is happening tomorrow, just so she's aware, for me to be on her radar, to make sure I'm okay. Did I deal with it okay? Am I okay? She'll tell me the same thing. If something's going on right now, my niece is going through kidney failure, and so she's only 23 years old and having to go through dialysis, and it has not been an easy journey. Now imagine, as a mom, having to worry about your child's life in that way. You don't care about these bills. You don't care about that job. It's the least of your concerns right now, right? And it's reasonable to want to check out of all of the adulting responsibilities when you just want to make sure your child is healthy and alive, right? And happy and living a full life that they should. But it's completely understandable that you want to check out. But guess what happens if if she checks out? If she checks out and then all of the finances go to hell while she's dealing with that, now you get back into that cycle of compounding shame, because I should know better. I'm too smart for this. All the things we tell ourselves, right? So I want you guys, and I'm gonna hop off in just a few. I want you guys to, your homework assignment for today, because I always give y'all homework, is to journal. This is between you and you and God. I want you to write down everything that you have been repeating in your mind, the ruminating thoughts, the ruminating feelings. Every time you have a moment of self-doubt, anytime you have a moment of fear, anytime you have a moment of anxiety, I want you to write down what those things are and see if you can see a recurring theme here. And I want you to tell yourself two things tonight. I want you to do two. Actually, I want you to do three things. I want you to do what I have people do in the Strong Start, Strong Finish journal. In this journal, at the end of the day, every day, I have you answer these three prompts, right? The first self-love prompt is, I forgive you for. I want you to write a prompt to yourself and say, I forgive you for. And I want you to write everything you feel like you need to forgive yourself for. Forgive yourself for not knowing, forgive yourself for knowing and not doing, forgive yourself for whatever it is. Forgive yourself for whatever it is that you feel like you need to forgive yourself for. Right? Forgive yourself for staying in a relationship you knew you were too good for. Like, forgive yourself for it. And then I want you to write this next prompt. I'm proud of you for. Y'all are beating yourselves up for a few things you get wrong, but I'm willing to bet that you get way more things right than you get wrong in a day, but you don't even acknowledge it. So I want you to write down in your homework assignment for today, I'm proud of you for. I don't care if all you proud of yourself for is joining this live today. I'm proud of you for staying on this live. You could have been anywhere else in the world. I'm proud of you for. I'm proud of you for telling someone how you feel. I'm proud of you for setting a boundary, even if you fail to honor it. Like, even when you make mistakes, be proud that you tried. I'm proud of you for trying, even though you made a mistake today, even though, I'm proud of you for even thinking about it, right? Give yourself some acknowledgement for what you are trying to do, the intentions you set, the actions you took, regardless of the outcome. I'm proud of you for it. And then the third prompt is a release of your thoughts. Before you guys go to bed, you can't sleep well if all you're doing is ruminating thoughts in your mind. The third and final prompt that's in this journal that you do in the evenings is, I trust God too. Listen, that's all you got left after that. You can do what you can do. And the rest of it, you're going to have to say, I trust God. I trust God to give me ideas on how to get out of the situation. I trust God to give me peace about it. I trust God to bring back to my remembrance my to-do list that I forgot to do today and I know I need to do tomorrow, right? I trust God to put resources in my path. I trust God to put the right people in my path. I trust God to give the rest of it to God. Let God do what he could do, and you do what you could do. And the rest of it that's out of your control, because you can't control everything, right? You can control how you think, which controls how you feel, which controls what you do, which contributes to your results. But you can't control other people, and you can't control environments, right? So give the rest of that to God and say, I trust you. I trust you to do what you can do. And I'm gonna go to sleep on that note. I'm gonna get some rest, because it ain't gonna happen with me beating myself up. What I say before, you in the bottom of the hole, telling yourself I'm mad at you, it's not gonna get you out of the hole. It's not gonna get you out of that hole. So allow those lessons, those stumbling blocks, to be stepping stones, and get your ass up out of that hole. Okay. I hope to see y'all tomorrow for day 7, I think. Day 7 of our 7 days of financial self-care. And the topic, I normally don't tell y'all because I normally don't have it up. The topic for tomorrow is financial rest. We're going to talk about no spend days. If you guys have been following me for years, you know I do no spend September, where it's a whole month. But tomorrow we're going to talk about no spend days. And so come back tomorrow so we can have more money conversations that help you feel more at peace. For those of you guys who just joined me and don't know who the hell I am, but y'all been listening faithfully, I usually pause to introduce myself, but I will do it now. Hello. I'm ADHD Money Coach B. I talk about mental health as it relates to your money. I work with the 4 times exceptional gifted Black women with ADHD. If you don't have ADHD, that's okay. We call you budget besties in this community, and you are welcome. But if you do, we call you budgeting baddies in this community, and you are welcome. And yes, baddies is spelled just like my name, BADHDIES, because you are a Black woman with ADHD. So welcome to this community. My goal is to help you shift from feeling financially frustrated to feeling financially unfuckwittable. If that is how you want to feel, I encourage you to follow me. I encourage you to continue joining as we go through these 12 days of financial self-care. We are halfway through, y'all. We got 6 days left. And then hopefully y'all are feeling more rested. You guys have more tools to go into the new year at more peace. You guys are pulling your parachute when you need to. You guys are reaching out to your support systems and you are building them for yourself. I hope that this information I gave you tonight was helpful. I hope that you have taken away some practical tools that you can apply to your financial life, to apply to your systems. And if you want deeper help, I encourage you to reach out to me. Do not be afraid. I don't bite, as y'all can see. And that is it for tonight. Bye, guys. Ooh. Oh, how do I get out of here? Bye, y'all.